always very interesting for me to talk with people such as yourself that are being involved in this field, because astrophysics is a very interesting topic for me in general. So I'm kind of geeking out when it comes to talking with people who are actually involved in that. Just to use the occasion, does this mean, or at least according to you, that at this point inhabiting Mars is more of a engineering problem rather than the physics one?
For now, yes. The physics behind it is very well known. There are certain materials that are going to be used to eliminate the radiation. But in the engineering side, we need a very powerful rocket that's going to be able to go to Mars and then bring us back. So we need to think of a way to use smart materials to create that rocket. Maybe consider something else for the propulsion system and the engines. Then in the movie Martian, you see all the habitats being on the surface of the planet, which it's still deadly. So what's going to happen is we need to build habitats underground in caves to eliminate the radiation levels, so make it survivable. There are so many theories where you might program satellites that are gonna be mirrors around Mars, and they're gonna reflect light and try to bring the temperatures up on Mars so that it's possible for a certain plants to grow, so that they can convert the CO2 to oxygen. It's so wild, but
wow, yeah.
I think it's more engineering for now. Even spacesuit creation, it's still a form of engineering, I would say. It's a design, it's in the aerospace physiology side as well, but you need to think of a way to have that spacesuit outside and have something that you wear inside in case something happens. I think we're very far from colonizing Mars, but maybe sending a crew for a bit, it's possible. But that's the thing. Mars is between 6 and 9 months away as well. So that's why we need a powerful rocket. It's so far away that it's gonna take you 6 or 9 months, depends. And it needs to be in certain alignments so it can be the closest to us. I think the moon right now is a very realistic goal at first.
And a part of the engineering problem, and I've always been very curious about this aspect as well. A part of the engineering problem, do you think that in general the human mind nowadays is capable of perceiving all of this new reality and actually be rational and capable to function properly when it's presented into a whole new set of circumstances, like being on another planet? Or is this something that you're being taught as well? I'm very curious about this aspect.
Usually the astronauts are 80% military people. So I see the difference between... so in this college, Embry-Riddle, we have a military program called ROTC. So we have the Navy branch, Army, we have Air Force. And most of the times, those kids who are in ROTC are super, super serious. Some of them, you might see them partying, you might see them drinking. Most of them are when they're in the first year, they're still a little bit stupid and don't know what's going on. But after that, you can, just the way they talk, first of all, they talk with so much respect, the way they express themselves, the way how organized they are. You can differentiate a lot between every other person and a ROTC person. So I think the reason why they choose military astronauts is exactly because of the mentality that a person who's going to serve the country has, especially the Navy pilots. Because the Navy pilots, I think being a Navy pilot is the hardest after being an astronaut. Landing a plane in the middle of the ocean on a carrier is the next step. You need to be super skilled for that. So I wouldn't say that it would be hard to adapt and you wouldn't be in the right mental space for that, because the people who are going to be chosen are people who are ready to sacrifice, who are very adaptive in severe environments, who have really I don't know how to say it, strict way of thinking, discipline. We have that saying in Bulgaria that you know, there's place for everyone.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
if you're not ready for that, you can be on the engineering team or the communication team. In a way that they train us for the training that I've gone through, and what the astronaut Chris Hadfield says is that you're trying to eliminate the risk. And you eliminate the risk when you get familiar with all systems and know, like, you get familiar with all the situations and scenarios where when something can go wrong. So what I've done as training is I did the military survival training. So they ditched us in a helicopter, buckled up in a deep pool, and they
Wow.
turned the helicopter upside down. Sometimes they turn it 180, sometimes 95 degrees, sometimes 50 degrees, sometimes 360 degrees. So you never know when the helicopter is going to stop. And
Wow.
you have only one breath of air. You just see how they turn the lights off, it's windy, the water is cold, you're shivering, and you just hear ditching, 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 and the whole helicopter starts flooding, and you're turned around, and you have only one breath of air. So you need to wait
Wow.
for the moment to stop, and then you unbuckle yourself and you escape. But it's not that easy because you're in water, you're floating. So you need to use a reference like your seat or a window, or sometimes your window is not going to open, so you need to find another exit without seeing, just by like
Wow.
touching stuff. So that's very hard. Then we do egress training, which is you go into the Orion space capsule like simulator module in the real size, and they drop the capsule in water, and you have the spacesuit. So you need to escape from that capsule. Sometimes the water is rough, like sometimes there are problems. You work in a team. We were dropped in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean on a raft. Like we were
Wow.
20 people, and we had to create a chain with our bodies in a way where the people who were in the middle had higher body temperature than the people who were on the outside. And then you do that chain, and like the people from the outside come in the middle, so that like 20 people can survive in the middle of the ocean, and then help each other to go on a raft or work synchronized to like notify. um for example, you go in a column like that, all
Yeah.
people, you hold each other's legs, and there is one person in front, and he says left right, so all of you like, yeah, paddle the water.
Yeah.
So these are things that you're like taught how to do, and there are way more courses like geology on site that will make you feel so educated and informed that you'll be aware of every risk and everything that can go wrong, and you'll be able to sense it in advance to notify like the people in the mission control or your crew.
Wow.
Yeah, I that's
Wow.
why I admire astronauts, because I think they're like better than us, but not in a way where like we're not capable of doing that. Just like as people, they have been through so much and they have that higher energy levels. It's super interesting,
Wow.
but they're really different people.
Since you've been this sort of like practical situations, I guess, walk me through like what was the scope of emotions that you first felt when you were presented into this sort of a stressful situation? Why, how are you perceiving this information? And I'm just interested to know about the inner brain dynamic that is going through your mind at a situation like that.
There were two cases. For example, when we're doing the helicopter ditching process, first thing is that if I don't do that, I won't be an astronaut. I need to go through the hard training here on Earth, and that's what I'm doing. That's why I scuba dive, I skydive,
Mhm.
I try to put myself in like stressful situations so I can fully prepare myself. Because that's not gonna
Mhm.
happen overnight. You need to work years for that. And my mom wouldn't understand me at first why I wanted to do all those crazy things that at first like first sight like look not in common at all and not related at all to astronauts, but it is. um, so then I'm in a team and I see everyone is doing it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do it because I'm stronger than my fear. Also, fear
Yeah.
lasts 1 second because you see the helicopter like cabin flooding and you have that fear, but as soon as the water hits your mouth, you take your breath and you're full focus how to escape. You don't think, oh my god, I'm scared, how am I gonna escape? You think about, okay, what's the next move? It's like a checklist. hold your
Wow.
breath, wait for it to stop, find reference, escape. Um, and another thing that I've been thinking of is, okay, so there's so many people out there going on a plane, flying.
Mhm.
What if that plane crashed in the middle of the ocean? No joke. I've been thinking that. Like, I've been
Mhm.
thinking that. And I like sitting next to the emergency exit. And my favorite thing was like, after that training,
Yeah.
I was like super randomly placed on an emergency exit from New York to Germany.
Yeah.
And the flight attendant is like, she started explaining to me what are the procedures. And I'm like, I was literally doing that like in water like 10 days ago. So yeah, there's so many people out there not like thinking about the risk. And yes, aviation is like
Mhm.
safer than driving a car. But when you drive a car, you're trying to be aware of the others. You know what are the emergency procedures. You know how to stop the car. You're operating the car most of the times. So yeah, I was thinking about that. What if that was actually life or death, and I was in a real life scenario where I had to escape? I was just gonna sit there and complain and not do it, or I was gonna try and do it. So
Wow.
yeah, that's what I think. I've had a few situations where, like, for example, when I was skydiving one time, I was doing a solo jump, and
Mhm.
I remember I did a front flip, and then my altimeter, the device that shows me the
Mhm.
altitude, just flew from my hand. So I was like, I don't know the altitude. And I didn't even think about it. I immediately opened my parachute. Like, I made the signal and I immediately opened my parachute. Because when you don't know the altitude, you can't just continue flying and think, oh, it might have been like 20 seconds. I can open it now. You don't trust that, because you might think that it's been like 20 seconds and it might have been like 2 minutes and you're dead on the ground. So
Wow.
I immediately opened my parachute. And then landing, sometimes I had bad landings and I see it coming from before. Like when you land, I saw that I was gonna end up on the runway, but it was too late for me to correct my like direction of flying. So
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt. But I was like, but you're trying to be in control until the moment you
Yeah.
like get smashed on the ground. So
So you explain how, into when it comes to just sort of stressful situations, you have a very, ordered and allocated thought process in terms of what to do. But do you think this is an approach that every person sort of can get used to, or do you think this is more of a characteristic trait that is dependable on the personality that you are?
I feel like if you're motivated enough, every person can get into that mental state.
Mhm.
But I would definitely say that character can dominate it, because
Mhm.
if someone doesn't like flying or diving and they're super stressed, you can't explain them that it's not scary, right?
Mhm.
I would say, yeah, you need to be a fighter. You need to have the mentality where you don't give up. You need to have the
Mhm.
mentality of trying again and again and again and not giving up. You just need to be, you need to go forward with that mentality. Because
Mhm.
I've met so many people who were wasted potential just because they thought something was impossible or they didn't believe in
Mhm.
themselves. And that can be applicable in many like other areas like journalism or like the healthcare as well. Um, People don't like trying new things, being bold,
Mhm.
putting themselves out there, being vocal. And you can't get what you want if you don't present yourself and say, I want that. I have these
Mhm.
qualities. I might be inexperienced right now, but I want to build that experience. How can I do it?
Mhm.
Think of a way, plan it. But that's the thing. Some people like to have simple life where they have a normal job that's
Yeah.
enough for a living, and that's completely fine because different people have different ideals, as I
Mhm.
said.
Mhm.
So I would say it's definitely a like character
True.
quality, because if it wasn't, there's so many astronaut applicants with the
Yeah.
same exact qualifications. So you need to stand out in a way. You've chosen because of who you are and what you can put
Mm.
in on the table.
Like when you're applying for these sort of schools, are there like this sort of like personality tests where they assess this sort of qualities in yourself?
So for the my astronaut training program, it was I would say, very hard selection
Mm-hmm.
because you needed to present flight medical, which is
Mm-hmm.
I had to go to a special cardiologist. It's called CardioFly in Varna in Bulgaria.
Oh,
So before I went to her, I got full screening on all my organs, blood and stuff. Then you go there again, you get different tests, yeah, different blood
yeah.
tests. You get vision tests, like blowing stuff, like how much like capacity you have for
Of the
air.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I had a vision test where you need to read like numbers,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't just the ones that you get when you go to your normal doctor.
Yeah.
The numbers would get like super small, and then I had to read things again with like um different devices, and then I went to the actual
Mm-hmm.
like eye doctor where they would check my vision. Um, and my heart was checked when I'm like active and stuff. So that was one of the requirements.
Yeah.
And then I had to be a diver as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because some of the trainings require you to dive a lot. We did a simulation of a mission in microgravity. So how you simulate microgravity on Earth is by using dry suits and full face masks and dive in a pool. You've probably seen those astronauts in the big
Mm-hmm.
pools where they train. We were
Mm-hmm.
simulating that. So that's what you needed. Then you had all those essays and qualifications, and the essays are the part where you show who you are. And that's not just a personal statement essay where you say, oh yeah, I've done that, I graduated here. They're super specific question wise. And even right now for my resident advisor job, where like that's a very responsible role in the
Mm-hmm.
college, the selection was still like super hard, which I didn't like expect because it's a job, but there were so many applicants and the questions they ask you are super specific, and they definitely put you under like pressure and stress when you have to answer, and then you go from one like level to a second level where you have the interview. I would say that's where you show who you are. In
Mm-hmm.
the astronaut selection is different. They have like 4 or 5 stages.